And the 2010 census tells us that the number of people who are 65 and older in all of the history of the census, and so anybody know how long the census has been in place? You know, you can do everything. 1790. So since 1790, we're at a place right now in our history that we have more folks over the age of 65 than we have ever had. And so that number is in numbers and percentage. So numbers-wise, we're at 40.3 million people in the U.S. that are over 65. And for those of us who are getting closer to that number, that's really good news. It also tells, and that new group is called the Boomer generation. So it also, census predicts forward, and the census says that in 2050, the number of people 65 and above will be 20% of our population. And of that group, the fastest growing segment are the folks at 85 and above. In 2010, that was 5.8 million people. In 2015, close to 20 million people at 85 and above. So why is that important in our community? Why is that important to us? Well, the national data tells us that 1 out of every 10 people in America, so that's 1 out of every 10 older persons in America, 1 out of every 10 North Carolinian 65 and older, 1 out of 10 of every Alamance County resident over the age of 65 will have experienced some form of elder abuse in their lifetime. 1 out of 10. So I come from the child welfare world, and so that's a staggering number. When I think about in child welfare, we say 1 out of 4 girls sexually abused. This is in the realm of that. 1 out of 10 of every person over 65 will experience some form of elder abuse. 90% of those cases, the perpetrator is a family member. Another phenomenon that's part of this overall. National data from the Elder Abuse Prevalence Survey says that for every report made to an Adult Protective Service hotline, hospital, all the places you're in, 23 go unreported. So that's pretty significant. So next is a statistic that affects us all. And it's a pretty staggering statistic. Major financial exploitation, which is one of the definitions of elder abuse, was self-reported by people over 65 at 41 cases per 1,000 people, which is a higher self-report rate than emotional, physical, sexual, or neglect. So older citizens themselves report financial exploitation at 41 cases per 1,000. Some other quick facts. Women are abused at rates higher than men. The older someone is, the more likely they are to be abused. So as the age increases, the likelihood of abuse increases. And then on top of that phenomenon we all know called dementia even further increases the likelihood that someone will be abused. So Alamance County has been collaborative for many, many years at tackling issues. So we all know that this is a great place to work and a great place to be. We focused in Alamance County for a long time on children. And our responsibility as a community is cradle to grave. And so you're here this morning because that really is where we all need. We've got lots of initiatives going forward with children. We've got educational, Impact Alamance is working cradle to career. But this really is the end of the spectrum of that cradle to grave. And it's still part of our responsibility as a community. So So we look forward to our time together this morning, kind of discussing all the issues, sharing our thoughts about these things, planning, and hopefully moving on to some next steps as a community on how we formalize some of these structures and really begin to tackle this national issue that affects Alamance County in some significant ways. So we're glad that you're here this morning. I didn't introduce myself. I'm Susan Osborne, the Director of Social Services.
As Adrian said, I'm the supervisor for the Adult Services Unit, and part of what we do is Adult Protective Services. And I was thinking, how do you present this? I know a lot of people, you talk about Adult Protective Services, the first thing they say or the first thing they think is they give us a call and they start the conversation with, you got to do something about this. So anyway, Adult Protective Services is based upon the awareness that there are vulnerable adults in our society, people that are going to be abused, neglected, or exploited. And what we try to do, what is the least restrictive means possible that we can still go in and help them to alleviate the problems that they're facing in their life. And again, a lot of people, when they call in, they think, you've got to do something, you're the strong arm of the law, go in and make everything right. The emphasis of APS is always the need for protection rather than investigation. We are not investigators, and it's good to see people from law enforcement and the DA's office with us today. We leave that part of the prosecution to them. We go in, we look and see what's going on, we try to make that adult safe. The basic tenet that we always have to keep, not in the back of our mind, but in the forefront of our thinking, is the right to self-determination by that adult. As long as that person understands the full consequences of choices that they make, then we have to respect that. We have to respect it. I like to ask people sometimes when they're telling us, you need to do something, I like to ask them, well, what if you were in that situation? What would you want someone to come in and do to you or for you? In and of itself, Adult Protective Services can be very, very intrusive into a person's life. And we want to remember that basic tenet of self-determination. There's 3 criteria that have to be met. Many times you may be one who calls in a report on an individual, and after the intake takes that report, then they send it to me. And I'm the one who has to make the screening decision on that. There's basically 3 criteria. The first one is the disabled adult. Are they physically or mentally incapacitated? What is it that their non-functioning or reduced functioning makes them rely upon someone else to do for them? So are they disabled? Are they being abused, neglected, or exploited? And the third part is, are they in need of protective services? Is there someone who is not willing, able, and responsible to act on their behalf? When we talk about that screening process, all 3 of those criteria have to be met. You can't do 2 out of 3. It has to be all 3 in order for it to be an Adult Protective Services report that is screened in. Now, there's times that we screen out reports, and when that happens, we look at possibly other agencies, other community agencies, district attorney, law enforcement, or even the Division of Health Service Regulation. Sometimes people will call in with a complaint about a facility. Well, at that time, we look at it, we weigh what options are available. Sometimes it's just something that's referred to Raleigh. We move from that to treatment after our evaluation, which is usually 30 to 45 days. Then we get together, we make a screening decision. And when those allegations have been substantiated, and we make that determination that the individual, that adult, has the capacity to choose, has that capacity, then our workers will write a written plan of services to help them, to help alleviate the problems that they're facing. And in that might include helping them to sign up for Medicaid, helping them to sign up for Medicaid or active transportation, Meals on Wheels, food and nutrition services, bubble packs, representative payee, budgeting. Maybe they just need help with someone helping to manage their money. Medical care. We find people all the time who haven't been to the doctor in 10 or 20 years, and we help establish that medical care for them. Some people just need some way to communicate. We can help sign them up for a free phone, life alert, weatherization, clothing, crisis food assistance, community resource list. There's a list, I don't know if it's in that packet today or not, but it's a community resource, front and back of just things in our community that people can draw on. I asked our treatment worker on Friday, I said, Wanda, give me a list of things that I can present, just kind of throw out there for people to let them know what would be available. And one of the things she said was, remind individuals that anyone can facilitate those services. It does not have to be DSS that does that. Anyone can do it. And it's very possible, she made this statement, it's very possible that the self-sufficiency of most seniors could increase greatly, could increase dramatically if those above mentioned services were in place. There are people out there that just don't know what's available for them. And it would permit them to live independently in their home a little bit longer. There's some services that that are based upon availability. That would be things like an in-home aid, 1 or 2 hours a week, adult day services, assisted living or nursing home placement, assistance with finding a house, referral for home health. All of those things are just the tip of the iceberg. And again, I remind you that it's not just DSS that can provide that. You as community partners, as Susan said in the very beginning, we work in this collaborative effort in what we do. And we need your help. We need your help just as much as you need our help.
I'm Desiree Lewis McCall. I am the adult care supervisor. I supervise the adult specialist and guardianship services. At social services, we provide guardianship services to adults who have been deemed mentally incompetent by the court, and when there's no one else to serve as the guardian. The legal basis for this is that the director or the assistant director of any county department of social services is to serve as the guardian for the adjudicated incompetent adult. And this is mandated by General Statute 35A. The Superior Clerk of Court, who has jurisdictions over these type of proceedings, is the individual that actually appoints the Department of Social Services. The responsibility of the guardian, unless the court assigns limits to the type of guardianship that we have, we're usually the general guardian. The general guardian is responsible for all aspects of the ward's life, including where the ward will live and consents for medical services. Now, in regards to major medical decisions or major decisions pertaining to the ward, we usually seek advice from medical professionals, attorneys, anybody that we need to consult with to make the correct choice. A lot of times when family members are not able to serve as guardian of the person, the question that they always have is, who makes a decision about a DNR order? And usually what we do is if that person is in the hospital, we take the recommendations from the physician about what to do. We do consult with the family member to see what their wishes are, but ultimately we're going to take the decision from the medical professional. We don't manage property or estates of the guardian, and usually when the ward has a large estate, the clerk appoints a guardian of the estate. We try and tailor our guardianship services to the needs of our guardian. So each guardian we manage in a different way. We seek to inform the ward. We seek to find out information about how the ward's value system was prior to us getting involved, and what their wishes and their needs are. We maintain constant communication with the ward's family or friends, if they have any. We try and give them as much information as possible, and in some situations, we have family members that are not able to be the guardian of the person at that point. But down the road in the future, sometimes the family member comes back and says, well, I can do this now. And what we do is a successor guardian. We make sure that that person can be the guardian of the person, and we hand guardianship over to a family member. We also try and give the ward the opportunity to exercise his or her rights within his or her comprehension or their judgment. As I said before, there are different types of guardians. You've heard me speak of guardian of the person, which is the person who strictly is related to the ward's care and custody and control over the ward. The guardian of the estate, which solely handles the managing the property estate of the ward. We have what's called a general guardian, which controls both the person and the estate. We have interim guardian, which is a temporary guardianship appointment prior to the adjudication process. And we do this when situations arise that require immediate attention that can cause risk of imminent harm to the person or physical harm. The Department of Social Services serves as a disinterested party. And we have certain duties that we have to fulfill. We visit the ward on an as-needed basis, as frequent as we need to. We have to have constant interaction with the ward at least every 90 days. We have to obtain training on powers and responsibility as the guardian. We have to notify the clerk when we're no longer able to be qualified as the disinterested party for that individual. And then lastly, we have to file what's called a status report. And within the status report, we have to list medical, dental conditions of the client, the overall well-being of the client. When we initially appointed as a guardian as a person, we have to provide this information to the court within 6 months, and then within a year, and then annually. Some frequent questions that people ask are, who could petition to be guardian? And the answer is anyone can. Anyone can go down to the clerk of court and file a petition to be appointed someone's guardian. There are certain steps that you would have to follow, and one of the steps are you would have to have some type of medical information where this person, where a physician deems this person incompetent. They're not able to sufficiently care for themselves. They can no longer handle their own funds. They no longer could do their activities of daily living. They can no longer cook for themselves or bathe themselves. Those type of things. And so another question is, what is the do I have to come and do I have to do guardianship? And the answer is no. There are some least restrictive things that you can try prior to a guardian being put in place. And some of those things are like the services that Mr. Cochran spoke about, a representative payee. If you know that someone is potentially being exploited because their capacity has been diminished some, it's not a bad idea to get a representative payee for someone to handle that person's money. The next one is probably you could get an attorney in fact. You can get someone to make healthcare power decisions for you through a healthcare power of attorney, or have it in conjunction with a durable power of attorney. The next question that we get a lot is, what happens if my mom or my dad or my grandma or my cousin needs a guardian and they have a house and they have a life insurance policy? We typically don't. There is another attorney that handles the guardian of the estate and is appointed to the court. But typically what happens is those things, if they're able to be liquidated, they usually are, because that money needs to be used to care for the person's living. If they're going to be placed in an assisted living, if they're going to have, if they're going to be able to stay at home but need an aid, we're going to have to start liquidating some things to provide that care if the person doesn't have the necessary money. Anybody have any questions? All right, thank you.
Good morning, I'm Kylie Jennings. I am one of 4 So I'm gonna talk to you all about what we specifically do. I ramble, so it's maybe reel me in, just throw your hand up or something. Adult care homes, commonly referred to as rest homes, family care homes, or assisted living facilities, are homes which provide residential care for aged and disabled adults. These homes provide around-the-clock and living staff who prepare meals, supervise medications, provide assistance with bathing, grooming, and any other personal care needs that they may have. Ms. Hall told us not to get into the general statutes of these things, but what we do is kind of twofold. It's regulatory, whereas we follow the family care and adult care home rules that they have to abide by, and then we are the social worker for every resident in those homes that they feel. That's what we do. So General Statute 108A-14 specifically authorizes County Department of Social Services to supervise adult care homes under rules promulgated by the North Carolina Medical Care Commission. In 1993, General Assembly amended GS 131D-2.11 to require the department to ensure that these facilities, who are required to be licensed, are monitored for licensure compliance on a regular basis. We in Alamance County monitor these facilities bi-monthly. That's just the standard rule, and then we're in there if there are any complaints, any concerns, or anything that is going on where we need to help administer those situations, which sometimes could be, we see some facilities every month, multiple times a month, and then you have those that are able to go on that bi-monthly schedule. In carrying out these requirements, the Division of Health Service Regulation through the Adult Care Licensure Section work in conjunction with the local county departments of social services. An adult home specialist's purpose is to monitor, investigate complaints, and we also receive the complaints and investigate those that are called into the Department of Health Service Regulations, and provide assistance to facilities who work with a very challenging and diverse population. These activities are both consultative and supervisory, with the goal of assuring safety and quality care for the residents of these homes. Additionally, there's emphasis in place on promoting operations that exceed the minimum requirements that are set in these adult care rules. Monitoring services that we do include, but are not limited to, assisting the state with initial licensure process, investigations on unlicensed facilities, which would be a facility that is operating as a family care home or an adult care facility, and they have not gone through the process of being licensed, they're just operating on their own. Technical assistance, routine monitoring, which would be the bi-monthly process that we do. Negative action requests, and annually, the adult home specialist is responsible for completing a comprehensive evaluation of all licensure areas and developing an annual monitoring plan along with the Division of Health Service Regulations to prioritize and target each area for review. These areas include medications, activities, residence funds, food service, admissions and discharge, physical environment, management and personnel, health care, and resident rights, just to name a few areas. The adult home specialists, I feel confident in speaking for all of them, take our jobs very seriously. We deeply care for the residents of the family care homes and adult care homes in Alamance County, and we are here to assist in any way that we possibly can. And just for number purposes, we currently have 58 family care and adult care homes, 3 adult daycares, and we have 4 pending, which will eventually be either family care or adult daycare. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Robert Liddens. I work as a CAP case manager. CAP DA, which is Community Alternatives Program for Disabled Adults. CAP helps to allow people to age in a place where they are comfortable. comfortable in their home or their private living arrangement. But CAP helps to allow people to stay in a place where they're comfortable and stay in their home or a private living arrangement where they're at. CAP is Medicaid funded. It is a Medicaid funded program. And there are two agencies that provide CAP here in Alamance County. And one is the Department of Social Services, and the other is right here with us. It is the Elder Care, Alamance Elder Care. So we're glad to have them. And so at DSS, we have 49 maintained slots at DSS. And there are 2 caseworkers that do those 49. And then with Alamance Elder Care, there are 41 maintained slots, and Alamance Elder Care also has 2 caseworkers that they work with. So that's a lot of slots for 4 people. But we manage and we survive it. It's great. CAP supports rather than replaces family and community support by helping to facilitate one getting waiver supplies along with other services to help a person stay home as opposed to nursing home care. So those services are allowed through CAP so that they can get the services that they need in replacing of nursing home care. So that would be things such as wheelchair ramps. It might be home mobilities. There would be telephone alert systems can be provided. You've seen the commercial, help, I've fallen and I can't get up. That's provided. They provide Meals on Wheels, helps with that. In-home aids, we provide case management for these people in their homes. CAP allows freedom of choice. So if someone is mentally capable, we want them to make choices. We want them to still feel like that they can make choices about their life and feel good about themselves and what choices they have. So they're able to choose their in-home aids provider. They're able to help choose where their supplies come from as well. So who is eligible for CAP? Who's eligible for that? There are persons who live in Alamance County. There are eligible people who are eligible for Medicaid, can be on CAP. They are considered by their physician to be in need of nursing home placement at the skilled or intermediate level. These are persons who choose to remain in the home with CAP DA services, as we said, and for a person to have health, safety, and well-being needs that can be met in the home or private living arrangements. For a person to have substantial support from family or friends or caregivers. These people are also eligible. People have been on the CAP waiting list since August of 2013, and currently 83 are on the wait list, along with approximately 37 pending approval waiting lists at this time. So if you have any questions, we'll be glad to try to answer any of those that you have. But let me just say also that we thank you for your time and your continued support as we look at the awareness of elder abuse in Alamance County.
And so next we're going to have Victor come up and do some statistical information for us this morning. If you look in your packet, you'll see that we have some stats that we're going to share with you. Not too much, but just enough to sort of get you guys aware of what we're looking at as far as our numbers.
Morning, everyone. Good morning. What I'll do is, obviously there's not too much on this page, but I'm just going to share some observations as we go. It's going to be totally off the cuff, no prepared statements. It's kind of how I am. For anyone who kind of joined us a little bit later, I do work in adult protective services, and we did generate these off of the numbers that we report to the state. I work in evaluations with these two folks and Wanda. Can't forget Wanda, we love Wanda. So just the easy stuff, the numbers we're working off of are for 11 months. They're based on our fiscal year to date. And we've had 335 reports total. Now, as Mr. Cochran stated when he did his opener, not everything is going to be accepted for evaluation. It has to meet our screening criteria. If it doesn't, we're going to set that off to the side. There are some other circumstances that would set a case off to the side. If it's a duplicate and there's a case that's already been worked, I mean, I've received three reports on the same person for the same circumstances all at the same time. Let's see. If they are from out of county, because we have to look at just Alamance County. So we work a little bit. We work a little bit differently than law enforcement. We have to look at where they reside. I know law enforcement looks where, kind of where did the say we're dealing with abuse. Where did the abuse happen? We have to look at where they reside. Okay, so for our reports, we're already saying that the great majority of reports, 57%, are between the ages of 60 and 84. So those are our elders. I personally expect that those numbers will increase, just based on what I'm seeing, based on the numbers that LaTanya presented regarding the baby boomers. I mean, they're going to continue to age out, and then they have these needs, and they're vulnerable. There's some other stuff going on there, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen the baby boomers kind of tend to have amassed, some kind of wealth. They're doing better. Meanwhile, people maybe my age or their kids, sort of that 30 to 50 range, they may not be doing as well, so they find themselves moving back into their familial homes and things. Sometimes that sets people up for potential exploitation or potential neglect, that sort of thing. Like, I'm going to let my kid live in here, and you're gonna make sure that you give me to all of my doctor's appointments, and then that, well, I'm busy, ma, and then it just kind of goes from there. 51% of all reports we receive are on individuals that live with a family, and neglect is the most common reporting of mistreatment reported. That's 57%. And let's see here. When we look at the living arrangements, 51% report living with the family. It's a very, very common thing in the community to say, okay, so-and-so is living with their daughter or their cousin or their niece, so I kind of feel like they're good to go. Their needs are being met. That based just on the reports and based on what I see, my observations when I go into folks' homes, when I really dig into their social connections and talk to their brother and talk to the guy sometimes who lives next door. And as Bob said, sometimes what we do is very intrusive, because we're trying to find out if there is that need for protection. We find that family is not necessarily a default safe place. Family is not necessarily a place that protects you from abuse or neglect or exploitation. It kind of boggles the mind. A lot of folks have this idea, a facility, I don't want my dad to go to a facility. They abuse people there. Well, numbers-wise, reports-wise, we're seeing something different. And that's just, for Alamance County. If you look on the top right quadrant of this paper, there's that nice bar graph that was generated for me. Neglect is two parts. Neglect is self-neglect, and neglect is caretaker neglect for us. So that's a twofer, and that's why it's so much bigger than the other numbers. But also, it has a lot to do with what's going on in a person's life. You have to look at their living conditions. Are they taking their medications correctly? Do they know how to take their medications correctly? Is the person, if they don't know how to, is the person who's supposed to help them take their medications correctly doing what they've agreed to do, that sort of thing. And then the next biggest one is exploitation, stuff with money. And with the way that the economy has been the last few years, even though it's kind of trending towards the good, I guess, or the better, exploitation is something that people fall into very easily. Maybe it starts with somebody's writing a check for mom or dad, a neighbor, a friend, son or daughter, and the next thing you know, well, I've been driving, Mr. Smith around, and maybe I should get $100 in gas money every month, it just kind of goes from there. It becomes a slippery slope for some folks. For our substantiated cases, you can see that the vast majority are females, at 65%, and then males is 35%. It's possible, now this is just, me kind of talking and off the cuff, as I said before, but it's possible that, for males, there's a this idea that, man is supposed to be like tough and machismo, and, if I have a problem, I need to pull myself up by my bootstraps, that sort of thing. There's also a possibility that there's going to be more denial of problems, less willingness to open up and talk to someone and say, when I go home, my friend who's supposed to be taking care of me, just leaves me in the room, and I'm incontinent. I can't change my own diaper. I need some help. There's maybe less of a desire to reach out. For our substantiated cases, and that's where we feel like there's a need for protection, 39% of the perpetrators are relatives. So getting back into that. And then 38% is self. And that gets back into that, self-neglect, caretaker neglect kind of thing. It kind of pulls back into that, neglect being the most common mistreatment. Let's see, 78% of the substantiations are somebody residing in a domestic setting. Again, something I've already touched on. A lot of this, from what we are seeing in our own eyes, is happening in the home, which I think is, for me, I know before I was at Adult Protective Services that it came to as a shock to me. I kind of felt like, if you love your brother or your mother, what have you, that you would do absolutely everything, that you would work with the doctors, that you would work with, if they're going to adult daycare, that you would work with them, that you would work with nurses, that you would be in communication and really just kind of step up and make sure that you're doing everything you can do to help that person because you love them and because there's a time, especially with children, there was a time in your life, where as a child, your parent was changing your diaper, was making sure that all your needs were met, make sure that you had food and everything. So kind of like the cycle of life flips, and all of a sudden, I'm too busy, I'm going to go to the baseball game tonight, and I'm going to hang out with my buddies and go to a cookout and stuff. It's kind of strange. Let's see here. And 33% of our cases that are substantiated are self-neglect. Usually goes a little bit deeper than, they have roaches or something like that. Usually, a lot of times it's like major medical need is going without. They have Alzheimer's, dementia. They're wandering. They haven't seen a doctor. They're seeing little green men. It's different in every situation. And so we do see a lot of mental health stuff. And caretaker neglect is 22%. And with caretaker neglect, that really, in some cases, opens up a real education option, because with caretaker neglect, you can talk to the person and should have some water up here. You can talk to the person and you can discuss what they're doing and help them discover resources in the community, that sort of thing. It's by no means is a caretaker neglect a fixed problem that is unsolvable. I mean, I know a lot of you do education just day to day. Maybe you should get your mom to a doctor. Maybe you should make sure that these meds are in a bubble pack. I know Bob mentioned that one earlier. That's one that comes up quite a bit. They forget to take their meds. You just punch them out each day. It makes it nice and easy. It's all organized. So that sort of thing. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so now you guys have heard about the programs we offer, you've heard some stats, and so now we want some participation from you.